Hello, this is Hart, and I'm just starting with a blank paper, and I know I'm going to end up with a mixed media project with one face and mini clocks and some text, maybe some library books. I'm not sure where I'm going to start, so I'm going to collage on using some Mod Podge. I do apply blue tape to the top and bottom before I start Mod Podging on the images that I want as the collage in my background. When I'm done with this, I realize I wish I wouldn't have covered up so much of the background, because I did enjoy the background piece prior to covering it up, but you'll see it turns out okay. So in the end, it is what it is. So I'm just going to let this roll, put on some music, and you can watch me Mod Podge these images onto the background. I do intentionally use too much because I like my images to be grunged up a bit, so when it bubbles I like to scrape it off and it destroys a little bit of the images. It scratches and scrapes, and if I'm planning to keep it just as a collage, I use less than half of the glue you see me applying now. Glue meaning the Mod Podge is made up of nothing more than PVC glue and water. So if you wanted to make your own, you could, but in this one I do plan on keeping it a while, so I planned on using just the straight up Mod Podge in case they have a special additive or something that makes it last longer. Now what I do is I am grabbing a card that I used on my last trip as a hotel key, and I'm using it just to clean out some of the major bubbles that I've created from using such excess. And you'll see on the watch on the left it creates a couple really cool scrape marks. Was hoping for more of that, so later on I'll end up sanding. And I'm just going to remove the blue tape before the glue dries, otherwise it'll get stuck to the page. I used that blue tape on the top and the bottom here just to make sure I have clean lines. I know that I don't want my image to fill the whole height of this particular page. I want it to be a little shorter in height, more of a landscape feel in the image, because I'm going to turn this plus many other that I make into a booklet. And so as you open each page, I want it to feel more of a book, more like a book. Now I'm going to use my homemade gesso, which I believe will last quite a long time based on the simple ingredients that are in there. You can always grab that video tutorial off of my channel if you'd like to check that out. But each time I use it, I have to stir it quite a bit. Now that you see that pudding consistency, a little less than the pudding consistency, I'm ready to apply the gesso to the page. And my tool of choice is back to the old card. You could use a gift card or a previous hotel card or even an expired credit card to smooth it on. I like the streaks that it causes, and as I'm applying it, I'm trying to go in different motions, and I don't mind if some areas are slightly chunkier than other areas. What you'll notice is my intent here is to cover up the images enough to where you can't actually tell what the original image is. And what I'm thinking about right here is copyright laws. The copyright law, when you use an image or a cutout from a magazine, it actually can't be in the same distinguishable design as what you originally cut it out to be. It has to be something completely different and new. And what you'll see in my finished product is none of these particular watches can you even tell that that's a Louis Vuitton on the left or a Rolex on a different spot. Oops, sorry about hitting that camera there. But it's enough gesso, and now it's a matter of dry time. So I've taken this outside, and I apologize for the shadowing that you see on here, but all I'm doing is I'm sanding this gesso layer down, not perfect, but to where this is going to have smoother texture, so when I apply the rest or whatever I decide to do, and again at this point I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next, but when I am sanding this, I'm making sure that I still have some of the texture on the image. So I've dusted everything off. I have my champagne gold metallic paint and my white pearl metallic paint and the high-tech plastic, supposed to be disposable plate, but I keep washing and reusing it. I have a stencil that's in a honeycomb shape that I'm going to use just to add some color to the background. And the pearl doesn't actually come across on camera the way it does in person. It gives a nice shiny white on top of the gesso. And using this gesso allows the paint to perform more effectively on the canvas itself, which is a good feature to do on pretty much any canvas that you use. So if you're going to paint on a canvas gesso at first, you'll end up using even a little less paint. As I'm putting these last little bits of paint on, I want to make sure that I'm not just stuck inside of the stencil in those areas. I put some spatterings in some other areas. And I'm using the excess paint that's laid on top of the stencil to spatter that area. I remove the stencil, but I want to use the reverse side of that stencil. I lay it down, and I'm grabbing a paper towel to lay on top of it, just to get that reverse image on the other side. Great way to reuse up that excess paint, and it gives you an interesting image. On to another day. I let it dry overnight. I have a permanent migraine, it just doesn't go away. And so I can't do the blow dryer or the heat tool that a lot of people use to dry their art quickly, to go step by step. And so I know now, looking at this page after it's dried a bit, I'm going to collage my main focal point on the center of this image. And I'm going to just let the music roll while you see me fiddle with it a bit and figure out how I want to lay it down. Okay, so another night of overnight drying, and I'm going to use an ink pad to ink up a stencil. And this ink pad is almost dry, so I know it's not going to leave a perfect image, and I was kind of excited about that. I have a Deco color pen in gold, which is acrylic paint in a pen form. And I'm using it just to make some of the elements blend in together. I'm now grabbing a silver Deco color fine tip pen, and this one is giving me a bit of a hassle because the ink isn't perfectly coming out. So while I'm deciding what to do, I just decide, forget it, I'm going to make it come out straight up on the page on the ticks of the watch. So I get a dabble of silver on my hand. I daub it off on the page over the top. You can hardly see it from your screenshot, but it slightly shows up. I'm just going to go in and brighten his eyes just a little bit. The title of this page is Grandpa. So next I'm going to grab a silver ink pad and a washi tape roll where all the washi tape is gone and all that's left is that plastic circle to make some silver marks that are circles onto the page. So even if you don't have stencils, you can make some cool marks on your page using an ink pad and shapes that you have around from either used items or other types of items that give you an interesting mark. I decide that I'm done, so I grab a pink Sharpie and I choose an inconspicuous place to write my name, Hart, on the image.